there's a saying that I like to use: don't confuse being busy with being productive. And every one of ours was really very productive, right? And so what Herb Brooks realized from the very get-go was he played in the World Championship. His biggest understanding was the best players in the world didn't play for the National Hockey League. They couldn't. There was a Cold War.
Yeah.
So the best players played for their countries. And so one of his biggest things that I saw that was so different, right? Great coaches see trends before they become habits. And a lot of it has nothing to do with their jobs. It just, they see trends, right? And so that was one area that Bill and I really got into and liked. But Herb saw that the Russians were the best conditioned hockey team in the world. And all other teams got close to them, but when it came time for the third period, they just weren't in good enough shape.
Yeah.
And so he ran into a friend of his out of Minneapolis, his name Jack Carrain, and we called him Cardiac Jack. And he, now you're talking 45 years ago, was a hit type professional trainer.
Yeah.
Had studied the Russians, all he had done.
Yeah.
So he was talking about quick twitch and slow twitch fiber and how it could be done, and you know what year you had to do it, how old you had to be. And so Herb Brooks was working on a deck with this guy, and he said to Jack, he said, Jack, what do we have to do to beat the Russians? He goes, you have to change everything you do. Now here's Herb Brooks winning national titles and in college, and he says, what do you mean by that? Well, you have to get in shape. And so Herb had a team doctor who I lived with during the Olympics who had escaped from Latvia. And his name was Dr. Nagabats. And Dr. Nagabats spoke 5 different languages.
What languages?
Russian, you know.
All the Eastern stuff?
All Eastern stuff. So Herb went and coached in the World Championships a year before the Olympics, had Dr. Nagabats talk to all these different coaches, got all their ideas, and constantly got better and better at what he did. And so I think the big part that you know you see with the Belichicks of the world and the other ones is that there's always a way to win. It's just never the same.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to see trends before they become habits. And you know, I could spend a whole day with you telling you the things that Brooks did.
Yeah.
That were amazing. But you've played sports long enough to know there are some coaches that are great at preparing you all week. But when the game starts, they open and close the door. They don't know how to do anything different. Some people coach, and they're not very good at preparing, but during the game, they're really good at adjusting. Very few are great at preparing and adjusting.
Yeah.
And when you get somebody like that, then it's really special. Like, let's see, you're wearing O'Callahan's jersey, right? Brooks would know when O'Callahan was going to do something stupid and pull him off the ice. You know what I mean? Because he knew he'd be so excited he's going to get a penalty.
Yeah.
So he had the ability, like, Jack, get off. You know what I mean? And he was that in tuned on intimidation of the referee, intimidation of the other player, you know, so many of the other different things.
Wow. Freaking Herb. Is that story where he made you guys run after the skate, or sorry, I'm a football guy. Skate. When he had you guys skate after the match or
The Norway game.
the Norway game. How many did you do?
So the part that's really interesting, this basically talks about trends before they become habit.
Yeah.
So Herb Brooks' challenge, to just kind of put this in perspective, right? They didn't want him to be a coach. They wanted Parker or Billy Cleary. So he had to convince him to be coach. Then the U.S. hockey was okay with preparing to compete, not win. And there's a huge difference. So when we talk about underdog versus a winning underdog, is either I'll go to companies when I speak to them, I'll say, okay, where are we? Are you guys preparing to win or compete? Are you looking to be bought or are you acquiring, right? Because it's one or the other, right?
Yeah.
Jules, we played 61 games before the Olympics.
Yeah.
No other Olympic team had ever played more than 8.
Yeah.
We played 47 of those 61 on the road. We did it in 4 months. The NHL played 80 games in 9, right? And so we practiced the day of a game. If he didn't like how we played during the game, we practiced after the game. And it always comes down to the same thing. I always ask people, what's the most important thing in time management? What would your answer be?
Productivity.
It's knowing how much time you have.
Knowing how much time you have.
You can't be productive unless you know how much time you have. Herb Brooks had 6 months to get this hockey team ready to beat the greatest team in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so the tactics and the way he did things were based on how much time he had, right? So here we are, we're playing the Norwegians, we're getting killed as far as the schedule goes. We're going back and forth. The accommodations we had is you had 3 guys to a room. 2 guys got a bed and 1 guy didn't. And how that was decided was if you were the smallest guy, you got the cot.
Yeah.
Right? You're hanging stuff inside the locker room. You're lugging all your own gear. You're trying to get it clean. You know, so now we're playing a team that we think we're better than that. And so we play, don't take it really that serious. We tie it. The trend is Brooks knows we're going to play them in the Olympics. It's going to be the same thing. The Olympics back then wasn't set up so for television. It was the real Olympics, right? So it was how many goals for, how many goals against, you know, and everything was metriced.
You guys beat the Russians,
right?
And you could have not placed the next week.
Exactly.
Yeah, crazy.
So Herb says, you know, this is a bad trend. You can't not take anybody nothing. So even though we tied in the Norwegians, he knew we were going to play him in the Olympics. And so he stopped the trend from becoming a habit. And we skated and skated. But what he was doing that the Miracle movie didn't really do is one of our best players was a guy named Mark Johnson.
Mark Johnson.
Yeah, and Mark Johnson's dad was an incredible coach.
It's a great day for hockey.
Yeah, great day for hockey, right? You know, totally 2 different personalities. You know, Mark's dad was positivity. Brooks was, you know, more toughness, right? And I think Herb wanted to break Mark that day and let him know that his dad wasn't coaching him. So we skated and skated until Mark Johnson slammed his stick against the boards. That's how it really happened.
Yeah.
And Mark Johnson is the coolest guy you'll ever meet, never gets upset. So to get him upset was something he liked.
Now, when did you guys come together? And did you guys like Herb?
To me, I always liked Herb. You know, I had just lost my mother to cancer, and I was there. It was a stepping stone to try to make it to the National Hockey League. You know, when Herb asked me to play in the World Championships in Leningrad, Moscow, I couldn't. If somebody showed me in the lineup, I wouldn't even know what he looked like. You know what I mean? It was just, you just played. So, to me, he always had my best interests in heart, and working hard was just part of the deal.
Yeah. But what about the boys? Like when you guys are in the locker room and coach ain't there, like when Belichick wasn't there, we're like, fuck this guy. This guy's making us run the goddamn hill. It's week 18. We got no knees. What's going on here?
Yeah, put money in the bank.
When did that camaraderie with the guys come together?
Well, it was a strategy. It was his strategy.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't like me, maybe they'll like
each other.